Hi, ladies. How are you today? My name is Donna, and Donna Shaw, and my good friend Tammy has asked me to talk to you a little bit about this wonderful book, Women Evolve. This book was written by Sarah Jakes Roberts, and we know her because she's the baby girl of T.D. Jakes, who is a wonderful speaker. But not only does she come from a faith-filled family, she is a very courageous young woman. She has been through a lot. I know we have things that we go through in our lives, but it was not public. It was not splattered all over the paper. It wasn't on Instagram. It wasn't on Facebook. We were able to walk away from some of the mistakes we made. But one thing about being positioned in a famous family, you live in a fishbowl. So I admire her for her courage. I admire her for her own personal journey. And I also admire her for the wisdom that's in this book. So this is a very good read. You definitely want to pick it up, or you want to listen to it in your car, or just, do this for you. Anyway, I'm supposed to talk a little bit about this book, so let me tell you what I learned about this book and what I learned when I was reading it. First thing, the thing that I got out of the book is to listen to who I am, who God created me to be, not necessarily the voices in my head, because the voices in my head, oftentimes, I don't know about you, but oftentimes the voices in my head, they are not necessarily that positive. My friends, my family, remember those aunts and uncles who told you many things? Most of them weren't very uplifting. So I've learned not to rely so much on those words, but to listen to what God says and how he leads me. One of the stories in this book that I thought was interesting, because I do want to get to a point where I'm listening to God like a child would, not with all of the questions, but just simply obeying like a small child would. Now, I know you know the story of the 5,000 that were fed from a little Happy Meal, basically. Well, I've heard it for many, many years. I mean, I went to church in my mother's womb, and I'm still hearing it, and I'm a grandmother. So I know we all probably have heard that story. Anyway, one of the things that she said, which I never thought about before, is not only how the apostles felt when they had to go and ask that young child for his little meal. I mean, how did they feel? They probably were like, okay, Jesus, we're going to get this meal from this boy, and we're going to feed everyone here. Okay, all right. And they probably felt a little anxious about even asking this child, even though he was a child. And then just imagine the child. I mean, can you imagine these grown men coming up to you and saying, excuse me, son, can we have your Happy Meal? My first question would be like, for what? My mom made this Happy Meal for me. She packed it with her own little hands for me. But I'm sure he wasn't as brash as I would have been. Anyway, also you think to yourself, the little boy, even as naive as he was, he probably, in today's world, he probably would have said, well, sir, I do understand that you're asking for my Happy Meal, but my mother sent me here to listen to that man over there, the Jesus man. the man who does the miracles. Now, you're asking me for my Happy Meal that my mother packed for me, and you're saying that you're going to use it to feed all these people. Well, I know Jesus to be a miracle worker, but I really don't know much about you. And right now, I'm not sure I want to know much about you. So I'm just thinking how wonderful and how humble that child was. That's where I want to be with God. I don't want to be questioning, because I am a questioner. I'll tell you a little story. When I think about walking in fear and courage and that whole thing. When I was a young woman, I had a job as a social worker. Now, don't ask me how I got the job as a social worker, because my degree was in art. I studied interior design in school, but through life journey, I end up as a social worker, which I really enjoyed. And one of my things that I really enjoyed doing was writing. I loved writing poetry and short stories. That kind of grounded me and made me feel very good. You know, some people have voices, and you really don't want me to sing. And some people have can dance, and you don't want me to dance for you either. But I did think that I had like a little bit of talent with the written word. Anyway, my boss was always writing proposals to get grants for our company, you know, for our nonprofit organization to help people. And I thought that was so wonderful. I wanted to learn how to write grants also. So I kept on asking my boss, could you teach me how to write a grant? And she said, well, no, I don't think you're ready. And I would ask her over and over and over again. And she would always say, well, no, I don't think this is for you. I don't think you're ready. And every time she said that, it like took a little bit of my self-confidence away. I felt like, well, maybe I'm not good at writing. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe this just isn't for me. So I know that she was really, really busy at this one point, and this grant came across my desk. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to write this grant myself. And then I just want to know if I could do it. So I wrote the grant myself. And of course, I couldn't submit it because I was told that I needed signatures. I needed my supervisor's signature. I needed my executive director's signature. So at some point I needed to let my supervisor know that I wrote this grant. So my friend took me downtown to meet with my supervisor. And my supervisor took a look at what I wrote. And I have to say, I was nervous. I was so nervous I couldn't drive downtown myself. I was nervous, but I was also kind of feeling kind of good about myself that I had done this. I thought, sucky now. Anyway, she sat there and she ripped my little proposal apart. She put red lines all through it. Every time she put red marks on it, that's how bad I felt about myself. I felt so broken that I felt like I couldn't even hold my head up to walk out of that office. And when I got to the car, my friend was like, well, what happened? What's wrong? I said, it was just so stupid for me to do that. I'll never write again. I don't know what I was thinking. I need to go back to what I know. I'm done. I don't even want to do this anymore. I don't even want to be a social worker anymore. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't feel like I can make a difference. I mean, I was just questioning everything about what was existing in my life at that particular point. I was questioning. The little voices in my head were telling me that I was not good enough, that I was stupid, and the whole thing. So I went home that night broken. I mean, I was a single mom and I really wanted to I knew how hard it was because I had experienced homelessness myself. I wanted to be able to do something more than just handing out food, something that somebody else gave me. I wanted to be the person who made the changes by writing. So I thought about it and I thought about it, and something told me to submit that proposal anyway. Well, usually I do walk in fear. I told you that earlier. I usually walk in fear. I'm not quite sure why I submitted that proposal, but I submitted it without my supervisor's signature, without my executive director's signature. So then I was extremely nervous because I thought that they were going to call me in any day and fire me because I had done this horrible thing, and I put this this horrible work out in the atmosphere. I mean, I was just I was horrible. I didn't want to go to work. I was just beating myself up. I wasn't eating. I was just a mess. 2 or 3 weeks after I had submitted this proposal, my boss calls me in the office. And I'm like, okay, this is it. Might as well pack my bags. I might as well go because I'm going to get fired. Because she told me it was junk. She told me not to submit it. I submitted it anyway. And there I go again. Not listening. Well, guess what? That proposal got funded. It got funded. I had to learn that it was okay to have fear, just as long as I didn't let the fear paralyze me, which it had just about done. It did everything. I don't even know why I submitted it. But it was that small voice, you know? They say God speaks to you in a small voice. And that proposal that was written through God's prompting, I was able to get more food, nutritious food for the homeless, not just rely on the donations that people had given. I was able to get bus tickets to help the clients get to doctor's appointments and interviews and look for housing. That grant even helped to lay the foundation of a building that we renovated, and we created housing for some of the homeless in Allegheny County. If I wouldn't have listened to that voice, if I wouldn't have walked through that fear, if I wouldn't have got up in the morning and went to work afraid, because those 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out whether or not I had my job, I definitely was walking in fear. But if I wouldn't have moved through my fear and listened to God's voice, then other people wouldn't have been blessed. I mean, that was not about Donna. That was about blessing his people, his children, those families that were out there without food. Those folks that were looking for housing but didn't have the means or the transportation. That's who that was about. So how many times have we questioned our abilities because of what someone thought of us, or what someone said about us, or even what we grew up with? Some of our households were not the most nurturing and loving households. I mean, my parents were pretty good, but sometimes they could be very harsh. And don't even talk about those aunts and uncles and grandparents, because yeah, it was something. But read this book. Tell me about your journey dealing with fear. Let me know how Woman Evolve speaks to you. Just talk to my friend Tammy, and she'll tell me. Anyway, thank you for the pleasure of talking to you. Bye-bye.